Hello everyone, welcome back once again to our monthly recap of the best upcoming, best looking new games, this one for the month of October. Let's just jump right into the list. Going in order of release date and kicking things off this month is Assassin's Creed Mirage. In this latest installment of the long-running series, we play as Basim, a character who had a major role in AC Valhalla. Mirage, however, being set 2 decades prior, is a prequel. Basim is a cunning thief seeking answers and justice as he navigates the bustling streets of 9th century Baghdad in Mirage. This game aims to deliver a modern take on the iconic features and gameplay that have defined the franchise, and really does seem to be pulling from Assassin's Creed's roots while reining in the massive scale and bloat seen in the last few installments, delivering more of a condensed, focused experience. There will of course be plenty of tall buildings to climb, a lot of focus on stealth combat and many ways to disguise yourself, the ability to stalk NPCs, pickpocketing things like their keys, which you'll use to unlock certain doors, eavesdropping with Basim waiting on a bench or tailing people who are having a conversation, and then using gathered information to carry out his objective. There will be various ways to approach your challenges, like some character might recommend you sneak in somewhere without harming anyone, but you could choose, of course, to do the exact opposite, ignoring them and going on a rampage. There'll be plenty of ways to take out targets, from aerial assassinations to ledge kills, throwing knives, or outright face-to-face combat, as there does seem to be quite a few non-stealth gameplay options. You've got the ability to fight several enemies at once, rolling over their backs, counter-attacking. You got some cool sword spin techniques and all sorts of tools at your disposal. There's even a new Assassin's Focus ability where you can mark and eliminate multiple targets at once. Now, of course, it wouldn't be Assassin's Creed if it didn't have parkour. You will be able to seamlessly move through the city, leveraging the largest assortment of tools to date, as they say. Yeah, it really does seem like they are trying to bring people back who may have not clicked with the massive scale open world RPG focused nature of Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla. From how they're doing the gameplay to the stealth mechanics and traversal, on top of pulling back the scale. While this is still an open world to explore, it is focused primarily on a single city like the original games rather than an entire country. Seems pretty interesting. I'm looking forward to checking this out. Assassin's Creed Mirage launches on October 5th, coming to PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. Before moving on to the next game on this month's list though, let's get a word from today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Dragon Silent Gods. This is an open world high fantasy role-playing game available on the Epic Games Store, Mac, and mobile devices, with a future release coming to Steam as well. In addition to being a character collection and development game, it also features grid-based combat, sandbox exploration, and seasonal social gameplay. The game's got D&D and TRPG-like elements with dice checks and treasure hunts. You can make your own character, picking from 4 classes, each with customizable attributes. There's also nearly 200 heroes to collect with varied traits, elements, and alignments, letting you craft your perfect team of 5. Other features include a sandbox high fantasy world with tons of free exploration as you complete non-linear missions and side quests, solve puzzles, go fishing, cooking, gathering resources, and of course taking on enemies in the game's tactical grid-based combat. It's also got a narrative campaign with a richly woven tale of revenge, mystery, and bloodshed. If you're interested in checking out Dragon Silent Gods, go ahead and use my link in the video description below. Alright, next up on this month's list is Lords of the Fallen, a Souls-like dark fantasy RPG developed by Hexworks. This is actually a reboot of the series, which originally released back in 2014. I remember playing the game back then, and while it wasn't perfect, I liked it well enough. Most likely this may have been down to the fact that this was one of the earlier examples of a Souls-like game developed by someone other than FromSoft. It was a decent first attempt, but never really took off, and this reboot hopes to change that. Beyond having the standard combat offerings, and as seen in most third-person action RPG Souls-likes, Lords of the Fallen touts a few other interesting features. You'll get to choose from 9 starting classes, with options including the Knight, Rogue, and Fire Apprentice. You can also create your own unique custom class, choosing from various options to fit your playstyle. There is also a 10th class that can be unlocked after playing through the game, or could be unlocked immediately by ordering the deluxe edition. RIP modern gaming, am I right? Another big thing is the fact that combat has gotten a bit of an overhaul from the original. Now, as mentioned, it'll have what you expect from any Souls-like, but they have said also that Lords of the Fallen features fast, fluid, and challenging combat, which is not exactly how I would describe it in the first game. It was more slow, deliberate, a bit clunky, and easy, if I'm being frank. So they are saying that they've made some big improvements here, and some of the early hands hands-on gameplay impressions that I've seen do seem to imply that combat is much better than the original. But one of the coolest things about this game is that it takes place in 2 parallel worlds. Basically, there are 2 renders of the play space that you can see and move between at will. Using what's called the umbral lamp, you will lift it and it's going to show you in your environment the umbral version of the world that you're moving through, this like alternative variation of the play space. This does things like granting you access to new pathways to bypass obstacles, providing the solution to various puzzles, opening up new enemy encounters, and letting you discover otherwise hidden locations and treasures. A very cool feature. It is a fantastic idea, and I'm surprised it's not something that we see used in games more often. I'm really looking forward to how they implement it here. Now, beyond all of this, the game has a few other things. There's lots of customization, they say, from both visual to play style. You'll get to make the typical decisions of the stats that you invest in, what weapons you use, the armor and spells. Apparently, there are hundreds of weapons and spells for you to choose from. It features 2-player co-op, so you can play through the campaign, they say, uninterrupted with a friend. A bit of a shot of baseline Elden Ring, where you could just like play in these temporary confined spaces and then they would disappear once you finish your objective. No, they are saying in Lords of the Fallen you can play continuously without any interruption, although mods let you do that in Elden Ring as well. But baseline, it's here in the game. You will, of course, take on a variety of different enemy types as you traverse the world, and yes, overcome epic, colossal boss battles, because it wouldn't be a Souls-like without that. And finally, as well, it also has multiplayer PvP with their take on an invasion system. As I said, early hands-on impressions of the gameplay do seem decent. I've seen some pretty positive vibes here, and I've liked what I've just personally seen thus far. It does seem vastly improved over the original. Souls-likes fans are eating good right now between this and the recently released Lies of P. Awesome stuff to see. Love to see it. Hope this one turns out good as well. Lords of the Fallen releases on October 13th, coming to PC, PlayStation, and Xbox consoles. Endless Dungeon is a game that blends elements of roguelites, tactical action, and tower defense gameplay. This is actually the sequel to 2014's Dungeon of the Endless and has made some significant changes, both from the visual style and presentation, but also to the gameplay. The gist here is you are plunging into this abandoned space station, either alone or with some friends. You recruit a team of heroes, which you assemble in whatever order you like, depending on your strategy and what sort of things you want combined, all while trying to protect your crystal as you move through levels against never-ending waves of monsters. So kill monsters, don't let your crystal die, and try to escape the level, rinse and repeat. You will be moving through these procedurally generated dungeons, offering different layouts, challenges, and opportunities with every run, all while the enemies keep on coming. Monster waves are endless, actually, hence the name of the game, and will provide a significant challenge. This game is said to be quite difficult. Your team, using its various abilities and weapons, need to hold back the enemies because you need the crystal in order to escape. If the crystal gets destroyed, mission over. You failed. So your party is going to be made up of 3 heroes in total, yourself plus 2 others. Each hero is its own class with unique skills and filling various roles, which will be some combination of support, tank, and damage dealer. As you play and progress, your crew will grow, unlocking more heroes to add to your roster and opening up more options and potential combinations. So basically, depending on whatever challenge you're up against, you'll likely want a different team setup. That is a big part of strategizing in the game. There's also an element of resource management, as you move through a dungeon, you will acquire useful resources that will help aid in your escape. You can use them to create turrets or upgrade your weapons or even enhance your hero's skills. The resource can be found scattered throughout the dungeons and is collected by defeating monsters, but it is limited, so you really have to carefully decide how you're going to use it. There's also a meta progression in between runs, letting you get more powerful with time. As you play, you unlock new chips. These are basically mods for your character, providing additional buffs to various offensive and defensive stats. Endless Dungeon looks pretty cool. It will be launching on October 19th for PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch. In Marvel's Spider-Man 2, Peter Parker and Miles Morales return for an exciting new adventure. This game is set 10 months after the events of Miles Morales, which was released in 2020. As with the previous installments in the series, the game features a large ensemble cast of various characters that are derived from the history of the Spider-Man comics. Lots of different friends and foes for you to interact with. Also, as with prior games, content outside of the main story route will consist of completing side missions and obtaining collectibles dispersed throughout the game's open world sandbox, with the player able to switch between playing as Parker and Morales to complete different dedicated objectives. There are evolved move sets, basically different new combat and movement potentials. The game's reveal trailer trailer had Peter utilizing that 4 mechanized spider arms to defeat foes. Insomniac have been pretty tight-lipped, but we do know that Venom powers are going to be in the game as well, and Miles will have both mechanical and electrical powers at his disposal. Parry is now also available for both Peter and Miles, so dodging fists, bullets, claws, and more, you'll be able to do that. Get a huge map to explore. The developers have actually stated that this is nearly double the size of Marvel's New York, adding an entirely new island as well as revamping the original map. And we got web wings this time. In addition to swinging, we can use these. It's just giving us another option for quickly moving through the city. And another big part of Spider-Man, from what I've heard, is collecting suits. Well, the game has over 65 suits for us to collect, with various customization options for each of them. I will be honest, I'm quite out of the loop with this one, as I have not yet played either of the prior games, but have heard pretty much nothing but good things about them, and the gameplay overview videos that I've watched make this look very, very good. I'm intrigued to go back and check out the prior installments. This one was pretty much a no-brainer for me to include on the list. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 coming to PS5 on October 20th, coming to PC a year or two later, depending on how Sony feels, if they can sell more consoles or if they should finally port it. Yes, we're still dealing with this here in 2023. Okay, moving on to the last main game in the list. It is Alan Wake 2, much anticipated sequel to the original. The story follows the best-selling thriller novelist Alan Wake, who has been trapped in an alternate dimension for 13 years. But also, there is a new character. We will be playing as both Alan, but also Saga Anderson in 2 separate single-player stories. Now, the opening sequence as well as the ending sequence of the game can only be played as Saga and Alan respectively, but everything else in between can basically be approached in whatever order you want. And much more has changed beyond having another playable character. Compared to the original game, which was like an action-adventure game with horror themes and was pretty darn linear, Alan Wake 2 is much more open survival horror game played in third person with puzzles, exploration, and lots of like Metroidvania elements as you revisit past areas after unlocking new tools, which opens up additional secrets to discover. So rather than moving through, like I said, what was a mostly linear campaign shooting gallery, which was the original game, picking up sort of bits of narrative along the way and having the story told to you, this promises to play much more like a semi-open world detective thriller. You'll be exploring the environment, looking for clues to bypass various obstacles. Many times this just boils down to solving some sort of a puzzle, which will allow you to open various doors, power up generators, find the secret entrance to a cave, all things to push your progress through the level and to move the story along. Combat has vastly improved from the original in just about every way from what we've seen. A lot of people have likened it from early impressions to the Resident Evil remake. So you're going to have limited resources, requiring careful and deliberate use of things like your ammunition. Aiming will pull the camera up really close to your character and also has a bit of sway to it. Reloading in most cases takes quite a while, and the enemies are fairly spaced apart, but what they lack in numbers, they make up for in difficulty. All of this results in combat encounters that feel very tense and challenging. And then the big thing being the flashlight, that is back as well as both an illumination tool, but also used in combat, stunning those shadow enemies, removing their defensive barrier before you can finally damage them. Lots of the game's systems as well are leaning into like the detective thriller elements of the game. As you explore the environment, you'll stumble upon and gather various clues. These will be added to your library that you'll make use of in your office. You can profile people you've met, revealing more information about them, arrange the clues that you've discovered on this case board, making connections that then unlock new objectives and tasks and give you basically the answers to how to get past various obstacles. Also, the visuals and atmosphere of this game look absolutely phenomenal. All around, I'm just very excited. I hadn't really had this on my radar, but after looking into it, I think this looks really, really good. Alan Wake 2 will be launching on October 27th, is coming to PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. All right, so those are the main best looking games that I personally am interested in this month, but we got plenty of other honorable mentions that I want to talk about as well. Starting off with Warhammer 40k Darktide. This has already seen a PC release, but it is now coming to Xbox. This game had a pretty rough launch with many unfinished features and poor performance. Very poor for some people. I was one of the lucky few that didn't really run into any performance issues, but the state of the game when it released unfortunately just did not live up to our expectations. The good news though was that the gameplay and the world and the atmosphere were fantastic. Now since release there have been a lot of updates, including new missions, bosses, and customizable skills. Although the game does still sit at a mixed rating on Steam, there was stuff I enjoyed about it. Now I am planning to dive dive back in myself now that they're having another update and an Xbox release. I want to see if things have improved. I am rooting for Fat Shark. I really love the Vermintide games, and I hope they can turn the tide here, haha, with Darktide. I hope they can turn it around. So yes, Darktide is now launching on Xbox. It's coming out on October 4th, and I'm going to be curious to see what sort of reception it gets there, if the game is in a good enough state to leave that audience satisfied. Forza Motorsport is the latest installment in the long-running franchise. Here, they say you can compete in over 500 real-world cars on world-famous tracks with cutting-edge AI, advanced physics, and tire and fuel strategies. They've added over 100 new cars not before seen in a Forza game. You'll take on other drivers as you race across 20 living tracks, each featuring live on-track scoring, fully dynamic time of day with weather, and unique driving conditions that make it so that no two laps feel the same. As always with these kind of racing games, they promise photorealistic visuals. Cars look really good. The tires look really wet. Forza Motorsport launches on October 10th, coming to PC and Xbox. Total War Pharaoh is the latest edition in the Total War franchise, the much acclaimed grand strategy series. In Pharaoh, you'll immerse yourself in a highly detailed and vivid virtual representation of ancient Egypt in its heyday. Beyond battling enemy forces, you'll have to navigate many other dangerous dynamic elements, lead your soldiers through the shifts in weather with things like torrential rain and sandstorms, all of which impact the surrounding terrain, which can turn the tide of battle against you or in your favor. You'll play with 8 faction leaders who each have different units and playstyles. You can be a diplomat, a commander, or even a warlord. And this time they have a brand new campaign customization feature that lets you determine how you play with an extended range of options, such as random starting positions, detailed resource settings, and the ability to toy with natural disasters and more, letting you either stack the odds against yourself for an additional challenge or become an unstoppable power. Total War Pharaoh releases on October 11th to PC. Next up is Gangs of Sherwood. This is set in the reimagined world of Robin Hood. It is a co-op action game that has you playing as Robin, Marianne, Friar Tuck, or Little John. You'll make your way through various levels, places like castles, towns, dungeons, and various locations in the woods, while taking on enemies and collecting loot. Each one of the 4 heroes has unique customizable abilities and gameplay styles. You'll be collecting gold that you will spend at merchants to upgrade your equipment and customize your skills, and the game features co-op with up to 4 players. I'm gonna be honest, this one looks a little rough, but I do like the Robin Hood as like a base setting. I like Robin Hood inspired games, so I'm gonna take a closer look this month. Hopefully it doesn't appear as bad as it seems in some of these trailers. Gangs of Sherwood launches on October 19th for PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Lord of the Rings: Return to Moria. This is a survival crafting game set in the 4th age of Middle-earth. In this, you will follow the dwarves as they embark on an adventure to reclaim their legendary home beneath the Misty Mountains. Players will join forces to survive, craft, build, and explore the iconic sprawling mines, while also having to be vigilant as there are plenty of dangers that lurk below. You'll conserve resources, hunt and gather food, as well as manage the dwarves' sleep, the temperature, and their noise levels, which would draw threats. There's of course base building as you restore the long-lost ancient kingdom to its former glory, and lots to explore and delve into with the depths of the mind as you search procedurally generated environments for resources. You'll uncover magic artifacts, mine ore and jewels. There's the co-op multiplayer. They've got a comprehensive dwarf builder, as well as the ability to craft dwarven tools, weapons, and more. And of course, plenty of the rich lore of the iconic fantasy world of Lord of the Rings. Return to Moria launches on October 24th. It is coming to PlayStation, Xbox, and PC via the Epic Games Store. And then finally, we've got Cities Skylines 2. This is the latest entry in Paradox Interactive's SimCity alternative. The original released back in 2015 and was much beloved. It currently sits at a very positive rating with nearly 200,000 reviews on Steam. You start with nothing, you build up a city from scratch, and there are tons of sim-like elements to play with AI and intricate economics, meaning that your choices will ripple throughout the city. You'll really have to strategize, problem solve, and react to any of the change, challenges, and opportunities as they arise. The game's scale is bigger than ever. You can build sky high and sprawl across the map like never before, and it's a dynamic world. As you pick your map and the climate of your city, you will then have to negotiate the natural forces that come along as you expand amongst the city's rising population, amongst the changeable weather, and as the seasons change. Cities Skyline 2 launches on October 24th, coming to PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. Now, those are the game launches happening this month, but there are also quite a few beta test and early hands-on previews that you can check out. Foamstars is like Splatoon, but for PlayStation. You will create these 3D battles with mountains of foam. As the foam builds up, it alters the terrain around you, changing the play space. You'll use this to mold the landscape to help give your team an upper hand. And then once you've got your opponent foamed up, which is like CCing them, basically covering them in foam, you can surf at them with high speed and then slide kick them to knock them out of the game. Or if one of your allies gets foamed up, you can slide kick them to rescue them, knocking them out of the foam. This actually seems pretty cool, like a Splatoon alternative. They will be hosting an open beta from September 30th to October the 2nd. Enshrouded. This is a very cool looking voxel-based co-op survival game in typical survival fashion. You start with nothing, you make a first few tools, and then you build yourself up from there while also constructing bases. You'll also all the while be making your way through this landscape that with this dispersed fog. You're going to try to lift it by building, hunting, and fighting the various foes and bosses. Now this game isn't having a beta, but they are releasing a demo during Steam Next Fest, which is starting on October the 9th. In fact, I should add, there will be tons of demos for various games coming out during Steam Next Fest, so keep an eye out. There's going to be quite a few new interesting things to play this month. Tekken 8 is having a closed beta from October 20th to the 23rd. This is the latest installment in the Tekken fighting game series. I'm not a huge fighting game fan myself, but I know a lot of people are, so be sure to check out this beta if you're keeping an eye on this one. And then finally, Space Marine 2. This is the third-person slasher shooter where you play as Warhammer's equivalent of a human god tearing through hordes of enemies. The original game was fun. The sequel looks great. They evidently have a beta that's happening right now. It's already started. You can register for it on the website, and it looks like it's going to be running from now up until sometime in December. And with that, we are wrapping up this month's list. Thank you as always for checking out the video. Hopefully you found some games that you were interested in checking out this month. There's actually quite a lot here that I want to play. I'm definitely not going to have time to play all of it. I'd like to check out Assassin's Creed Mirage. I want to check out Lords of the Fallen and Endless Dungeon. And I also want to check out Alan Wake 2. I would love to check out the Spider-Man 2, but I don't have a PS5, so I'm just going to wait until the PC version comes out. And even some of the additional games, like I would really like to see. So going to be a pretty busy month, lots of games to play. Hopefully you found something that interests you here in this month's list. Thank you as always for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.